Push that this way so Austin can
I don't think that would be fitting.
But those C's are going to do the job. I'm gonna say, is that part of the recovery process? Is that changed? Is that taken out?
He doesn't have, I mean, if he wants to, he doesn't have to. Yeah, I have those, as long as I have those.
I can give you the training process. You're not even considered absent. Why?
Anyone have the schedule pulled up?
Had it.
You what? How long am I supposed to teach for? Because I'll stay here all year.
Let her know if she works.
Right, so you're stuck in the second.
So what?
Alright, I'm actually going to use the slideshow this time. Sorry, I'm being lazy. So, forces afloat, why is it afloat? Yeah, because we're on ships. I don't know about that life, so I'm just saying. But I do know a lot about these programs, I just don't really use them. So, chapter B1 is about what? Asbestos, right? So I know you've seen the commercials. If you've been... So do you think we still use this program anymore?
Yeah.
Yes. What's the requirements? Does every ship need this program?
No.
No. Damn, you guys already know. Oh, who had? So 3 categories of asbestos. Know that it's Navy Sea Systems Command that establishes. I know you guys can read, I don't like reading slides, so I'm just going to point out the important parts. And then, of course, the CO is the one for asbestos. The CO is the one that always implements the policy and makes sure that the program is being done. So know this, Emergency Asbestos Response Team, EART. The test loves to give you acronyms. They don't like to, or they'll ask you what it stands for. They'll either ask you what it stands for, or they'll just give you that as an answer choice, and you just have to know what it means. So like they were saying in the front, it doesn't apply to every ship. The only ones it applies to is what?
Prior to 1980.
Yeah, prior to 1980. But what if my ship, I just decide to be stupid and it has asbestos in it, even though it was laid prior to 1980? Does it still qualify? Yes. So even though it does say keeled was laid prior to 1980, cool. But if the ship for some reason has asbestos in it, then it qualifies. So disease states with asbestos is asbestos itself and cancer. And then most symptoms show up 10 to 45 years later. And then how do you diagnose asbestos?
Chest X-ray.
Yes, but also I can just, by talking to the patient, right, what are they going to tell me? History, exposure and history. So So yes, check says X-ray, you'll follow up with that, but you're mainly gonna get it off of their history. So know these two different ones, I've seen this before, the difference between friable and non-friable. So which one can be crumpled? Friable, right? Pliable, friable is how you remember it. And then non-friable is it can't be crumpled. Industrial hygienists, you all know this, they're the ones that survey. They survey, make sure the plan is in place, that things are being labeled. If I have asbestos and I'm gonna dispose of it, what color bag does it have to be in?
Red bag.
Red bag. So no command shall provide and display warning signs in each location where the asbestos work is performed. Do I have to remove things that have asbestos in it? No, a lot of our buildings still have asbestos in it. Does asbestos hurt you right off the bat? If, just say this room has asbestos in it. Just say it has it in the ceiling, right? Is that harmful to us? Not really. So asbestos is only bad when you aggravate it. So a lot of times they use it for insulation, they use it for different machinery, but if it doesn't get touched, it's not used, and it's kind of contained, it doesn't really pose a hazard unless we start like tearing down the room. So, like the middle one says, command shall not remove if it's in good condition. So if the insulation is good, the roof is in good condition, it's not leaking, we don't need to remove it. Know the bag, heavy duty 6 millimeter thickness. Oh, and then we talked about it before, red for identification. So it needs to be 6 millimeter thickness, red in identification, and doubled up. Know this too, repair and remove greater than 3 nautical miles from U.S. shores.
It's getting here over there, so.
So what happens is if a ship is out to sea, they have to be how many nautical miles to rip it out? 3, right? And then they're gonna put that contaminant in what color bag? Red. Why do you think it has to be 3 nautical miles away?
So it doesn't float ashore.
Yeah, so it doesn't go ashore, but also what's it gonna do? Yeah, it releases into the air. Once you start ripping that shit out, and we'll talk about the heart team in a minute. How often does asbestos training have to be done?
Every year.
Every year. So if your ship was one that the keel laid prior to 1980, or you have a ship that just happens to have asbestos, you have to do annual training. It's just like hearing conservation, all the other programs that are in this manual, it's 1 year. So normally we like to capture that when a person checks into the ship, we give them that training right off the bat, to maybe tell them where the areas are, the asbestos areas, tell them about the risk, educate them a little, and then give them follow-up training. Record keeping, everything is permanent, so you're not gonna throw away those records. Why do you think they're permanent? Yeah, the effects are long lasting. How long were the effects?
25 years.
Yeah, 10 to what?
45.
Yeah, 10 to 45. So if we, normally records in the Navy are kept for how long? 2, right? Usually they're like 2 or 3, depending upon the instruction, right? But what happens if I get out of the Navy, I'm having issues, and then like 10 years later, I might need that documentation. So in my opinion, that's how I remember it. They need that documentation 10 to 45 years out for that person. So know these two, the 2 protocols. You have a ship's force and then emergency asbestos response team. This is the one I've seen before. Know how many people, formerly known as a 3-man emergency rip out. That's because there's usually 3 people on that team. And then know the difference. What's the difference between these 2? One is non-friable. Non-friable was what? Can you bend it? No. So non-friable, this is the one that's not too hazardous because you can't really bend it, you can't break it. This one is what? Breakable, right? Friable, pliable. So that's why you need emergency asbestos. And they have to wear suits and all that trash. So safety officers involved too, just make sure they wear proper PPE. And then these are the 2 things we were talking about. This is the 3 teams, the heart team, this is the 3 people. So there needs to be a supervisor, a cutter, and a cleaner. Know that. There's 3 people on that team. So this ER team, there's 3 people. And know that the 3 people are the supervisor, cutter, and cleaner. And then commands, well, like we talked about it before, commands that have to have the ER are PLA before 1980 or if they need an exemption. And then I would know this. Minor repair is anything less than 3 linear feet of pipe or 1 feet squared of insulation on surfaces other than pipe. So they're only doing small repair stuff. They're not doing like, hey, we're just gonna remodel, let's start ripping shit out. So if a pipe bursts or something happens or they need to rip something out real quick, or they need to do damage control, this team is gonna be put into place. So restricted access, 10 feet of area. I would definitely know this procedure. If they're taking a sample, if they want to test it, this is what they're going to do. Is this the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Any questions about asbestos? I know it's an old program, but we still use it here and there.
Nope.
Y'all have a quiz on this? All right. I'll give you a few minutes.
Sure.
I hated that you switched.
Thank you. Did I just honest? I have not. Thank you. Of course.
Test.
So you're saying
especially for IEP. Yeah, crazy, but I got love for him, I just can't. I think I will.
turn into Wombo?
Yeah, okay. It says computers. Alright, hold on, technical difficulty. Alright, hold on, the filter's not working.
It's all good, I should have done that.
Here? No, now I know.
Bring the mouse over here to this screen.
I know what you want.
There you go. Nice, you go.
So chapter B2 is about what? So heat stress, are we concerned, like, we work in a clinic or we work in a hospital, are we really concerned with this? No. You have your nice air conditioning, whatever. So this again is a float because it's on shift. So why do we care about heat stress? Who does this involve? Yeah, everybody, people that work in the scholarly, people that work in engineering. Why do we care about heat stress though?
Kill you. Because it happens to them.
Yeah, it happens very often. Is it a perfect environment down there? The shit breaks, right? There's no, the water's down, there's no air conditioning, there's no ventilation. I shouldn't say air conditioning, let's say ventilation. So those are things to think about when you look at heat stress. Heat stress is all about, hey, how hot it is, and are there factors that change the environment? Is the ventilation system down? Is there water available? Maybe the scuttlebutt that's closest to the people working is not working. Why do you think that matters?
Because they're correlated, directly correlated.
Yeah, so if I'm working, it's hot as shit, right? And then I don't have my ventilation that I normally have, air circulating through, what's gonna happen to the heat in that compartment? Yeah, you're gonna be hotboxing, so it's gonna be really, really, really hot. So heat stress is gonna go up. What kind of injuries that you might see with heat stress?
Heat cramps.
Yeah, heat exhaustion, heat cramps. You guys are all that trash. You guys are forming out. Oh, sorry. What else can exacerbate heat stress? As a corpsman, what could you do to tell people? How could you educate them with heat stress? Hydrate. What do you think they're hydrating on? Yeah, Monster. If I went back to my company right now, everybody and their brother, even my chief, is drinking stupid Zions drinks. I say stupid, but I would drink them too. So medication can cause issues, right? What kind of medication? Anything like blood pressure meds, anything that'll kind of dry out your system. What about Sudafed?
Oh yeah.
Sudafed's a big one. So it's also good if you're on a ship to do that counseling to make sure that you know you're not just like, here, take some medication. I had a patient who was, well, he wasn't a patient of mine, he was a coworker, but he was put on Flexeril. What did Flexeril do to you? He fucking took Flexeril at work. So I blame the corpsman, I blame the doctor, I blame everybody that he was in contact with, even the pharmacy, because nobody counseled him and told him how to use it. So heat stress, how do we measure it? Who's a Pred Med Tech in here? Do we have any Pred Med Techs? Oh, thank God. So heat stress, how do we measure it? Yes. And then these are the three, these are the three readings. You have your dry bulb, wet bulb, and globe temperature. How many WBGTs do you need on a ship? At least two. At least two. So do you have to have a WBGT?
No.
No, newer ships are a little bit Gucci. They have the AHSS, so know that. Either one of those. Normally on the exam, I haven't seen the AHSS. I've just seen this. And they want to know the WBGT, what is the reading? What does it encompass? It's dry bulb, wet bulb, and globe temp reading. And we already talked about it, things that affect heat stress, workload, airflow, body temperature. Maybe you're not feeling right to begin with. Maybe you're on medication. Maybe you're slimming monsters and you're not drinking water. We already talked about this ventilation system. We already talked about this dehydration, illness, alcohol. Know this, acclimation, heat acclimation. So if I have just say a brand new recruit that just graduates boot camp, just say he works in the engine room, can I just throw him in there and start working 12-hour days? No. So there's acclimation. It's just like if you acclimatize to who's been to Japan. You guys did you get that period, or were they kind of like they're supposed to? Yeah, they're supposed to give you that period. But same thing here. They might start you off working maybe a couple hours a day, and then they'll bump it up to maybe 12 hours. And like I told you before, you have to have two portable WBGTs if they don't have that automated heat stress system installed. And then who's overall in charge of this policy? CO. PrevMed does, but PrevMed's it's not wrong. PrevMed's an extension of the CO, right? Because he or she's going to make us do all the work and then just put, their name on it. So medical department representative, we're the ones that survey. So we'll go in there, like you said, the PrevMed, they go in there, they survey, they take their temperatures. We're also the ones that provide training. How often is the training? Annually. Divo makes sure, so medical department representative, we're the one that looks at the times and says, is this healthy or not? And if you look in the instruction, you're going to see all these charts, all these numbers. Don't really look at that trash, because you're not going to remember that. They're not going to ask you that. They should not ask you that on the advancement exam. If they do, I bet you nobody gets that freaking question right. I wouldn't study the charts. I'm supposed to tell you to study everything, but don't study the charts. You drive yourself freaking nuts. Just know that if it's over the amount of work time, stay time, we're going to talk about it. The medical department head is going to make a recommendation to say, hey, these workers, there's no water, there's no ventilation, so instead of working 6 hours, they need to work 4 hours. So that's kind of the whole program of heat stress, just making sure that, do you think this room always stays the same temperature? No. So it depends on what machines are moving, how many people are in here, are there ventilation system, do we have access to water, so it's that same cycle. So the medical department representative will make the decision like, hey, you need to decrease the work time. They're going to tell the division officer, but who needs to ultimately know? The CO, because the CO is going to be the one that grants, like, hey, yeah, I agree with this, instead of working 6 hours, they need to do 4 hours on, 4 hours off, or whatever they recommend. Know this, know the calculation. I've seen that on there multiple times. Know this too, it needs to be hung at least 2 feet away from a ventilation terminal or opening. Why do you think that is?
Do a false reading.
Yeah, false reading. So if my ventilation system is all the way in the corner and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna put it in the coolest part of the room, do you think that's not an accurate reading? Also, should I hang it off of something metal? No, so you wanna make sure that, we're saying these things, but it like happens, so. Cause I see it all the time, I'll inspect fridge temperatures, and they'll put like instead of like in the middle of the fridge, they'll put it in like this small little drawer on the bottom. And I'm like, that's not an accurate representation. No wonder your sensophone's going off, because it's not accurate representation. And like I said, never hang with metal wire. And then this is like the oh shit factor. So if during the survey 5 degrees Fahrenheit or greater in any watch workstation, so I'll just throw a random number out there. Just say that where we work at, it needs to stay within 80 degrees. 80 degrees is what it should be at, right? If it goes greater than 5 degrees, that's when we need to look at it and be like, all right, these people that work in this condition, it's super hot in here, we need to make sure that, can there be ventilation provided? Is water an issue? And then also the stay time. If it increases in temperature, they need to, maybe if they're working 8 hours, they need to go down to 6 or 4. So if you're looking at those charts, it's really confusing and there's all that numbers. That's what happens is when you calculate the WBGT, you look at those charts and that's how they determine how much to drop the hours of a shift from. And what this does is when we get this reading, you enter it in TMIP or SAMS, and it calculates it for you. And there's little check boxes. It's like, is there available ventilation? Is there available water? So, I mean, it pretty much does it for you. And it tells you if it's out of range or not. Main thing you need to know is just know this calculation. I've seen it on there multiple times. Know this too. When you first put it in there, you need to wait 5 minutes. And then if you move it around, it's 3 minutes. So once it enters the room, 5 minutes, and then if you decide to move it around the room, 3 minutes for every site that you're going to use it. And then the survey sheet, OpNav 5100, that's our instruction, right? But instead of 0.17, it's / because it's a form. Know the 1.5 liters per hour. Is it bad if you drink too much water? Is that such a thing?
Yes.
Yes, because you're diluting your nutrients and stuff. At least 6 hours of continuous sleep for 24 hours. Did I fuck it up again? I think I fucked it up. No, that was the last slide. Oh, it is? Yes. Okay. Any questions on heat stress? So don't get crazy on I know there's charts in there, there's graphs and all this. Don't get too consumed in that, just know the calculation. Know the calculation. If I bring a WBG in the space for the first time, how many minutes does it have to sit before I read it?
5 minutes.
5. If it's here and I want to put it in that corner, how long do I have to wait to? 3 minutes. How many, if I don't have an automated system, how many WBGTs do I need per shift? 2.
This one right here, and then you're done.
Yeah.
That's CS2 is teaching the tri-service code.
Are you at 9? Oh, this is site number. This one is. You work at the hospital. cookies in here? Sorry.
So, I'm part of it.
I was in the hospital for like 3 days. I was fucking.
Try your clicker.
Yeah, probably best hospital food. Well, I've never really been in patient.
I don't cook, I'm on part of it.
All right, so site conservation. Pretty much know about this, right? PPE, you're probably sick of hearing that word. Same thing, commanding officer, like every other program, commanding officer is gonna make sure it's put in place. Safety officer is the one that's gonna provide training. Make sure that areas that require iPro are labeled. And then evaluate the program at least annually. How often do you think they need to do training?
Once a year.
Annually. Divos, they make sure that people, they're gonna enforce it, they're the enforcers. So safety might say, hey, these are the guidelines. And then the Divo, because they actually work in that space, they're gonna be the enforcers. And then medical department representative, we always get thrown out there for EAPRO and iPro. Have you ever gotten yelled at like, hey, why isn't such and such wearing EAPRO and iPro? And you're like, I don't know, I gave it to them, but I don't work in their space. So ultimately, it does fall on us, and it falls, training falls on us as well. Know this, eye hazard areas, 3-inch deck stripping, and use caution signs. And the one that determines it is the industrial hygienist. So the industrial hygienist is the one that does the survey. Safety is going to make sure that everything is implemented based on what the industrial hygiene survey says. Divo is going to be the enforcer, and then medical department representative, we're just going to be handing it out, and then we provide additional training if needed. Know the eyewear prescription form DD 771. And know this, immerse in 10 minutes of disinfectant. When you clean it. Here, this is what I was looking for. So eye wash station, know this, minimum flow rate of 0.4 gallons per minute for 15 continuous minutes. And then know this one too, they should be easily accessible within 100 feet or 10-second travel to the identified eye hazard. So for example, in pharmacy, when we're compounding, we have an eye wash station right by where we compound. Or if you take in lab, like in college or chem lab or whatever, they have it in the back usually. I would know this too, not less than 33 inches or more than 45 inches above the deck, 6 inches minimum for the nearest wall or obstruction. This is where eye wash nozzles need to be. And then also the temperature, 60 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're shipboard again, right? So eye wash station and shower equipment is maintained through PMS. And then the sign is green sign with white lettering that says emergency eye wash station.
Go back real quick. Eye wash bottles for subs instead of a station.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying. I've seen it.
So yeah, for subs, Because space is limited, they have eye wash bottles instead. And of course, you're not gonna take anything out of that person's eye, you're just gonna flush it, and then they need to see, at the MDR. I think that's it, it should be all. Any questions on that?
This is all your stuff.
Yeah, oh, I was gonna leave this for you.
Is that from yesterday?
Yeah. I just kept it because I had
pictures.
Okay.
And then I'll get you the class roster. If
Okay.
you don't see it by Monday next week.
Okay. Is that what I had yesterday? I don't know when this one.
The one you had yesterday.
Okay, I'll-
Alright, take a quick 5-minute break so I can get CS2 set up.
that for a while, and now I'm at a hospital. I never thought I'd get in a hospital, so it's not that bad. So, how many people have looked at the bib? How many people know what subcategories are in the bib? So if you open up the bib, and then when you go on Navy Management Center, you open up the bib, and then you click on a different link, it says subcategories for that bib. Those subcategories, if you look at your profile sheet, are the same subcategories on the profile sheet. So it breaks it down even more. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, I only found that about 2 years ago. So I tell my guys about it, so I'll tell y'all about it. Open up the bib, and then go to subcategories. Those subcategories break down your bib even more, and it matches what's on the profile sheet. So once you, like last year when we take profile sheet, all the numbers where it says you have 17 out of 25, those subcategories are on the actual bib. So it's a good piece of information. P5010, P7, Tri-Service Food Code, everything. How many PMTs we got here? Any? None? How many people think this is boring? Well, y'all got a lot more stuff. Training responsibilities, the same. Army vets is a big one. You have to know the 18 hours supervisor manager reports, that's a big one. I heard some formerly say that in the last test. And then the food employees, we have to receive 4 hours initial food service training, and then 30 days or less, and then or more actually, it's 2 or more hours a month. Y'all know all the terms and abbreviations? It's what we're about to say, they break it down very easy. Prohibited diseases, Salmonella, typhoid, Legionella, E. coli, all the major big ones. You can't go back to work no less than 50 days. Everything that's highlighted is pretty much what is going to be covered on the test. The SPV must deliver to the dining facility within 40 hours of ordering. So the subsistence prime vendor program, what we do is before we can even put in an order for any food we have certain prime vendors we go to. In different areas of the world, we can't just order from a different market. 9 times out of 10, if you're in the Med or on an East Coast deployment or in Iraq, all the food comes from Germany. If you're in Afghanistan and stuff, all the food comes from the West Coast. We don't actually get anything from the local countries unless we have PMTs on site. Only PMTs on site are like big decks, so small boys, gators, stuff like that. If we have a PMT, that's great. If not, it's up to the cooks and the IDC, or in some cases, big guy. Anybody been to a small boy? Gator on a ship? No? Tell me if I'm going too fast. Fitness for human consumption inspections by the PMA, both the shore and afloat. So usually what the PMTs will do is when we receive stores underway is the big one. We receive it from a different ship, and the PMT or a medical inspector has to be there when we receive it. The best way to see if any food is contaminated is not actually checking the food first, but checking the packaging. So if you rip a cardboard box and you open it, you know how cardboard has 2 layers? You open it, if you see anything that's crawling around, that's no bueno, right? So that's the very first insight. Fruits and vegetables inspections are based on USDA standards. All our meats, too, are USDA certified. No matter where you deploy, your meat has to be USDA certified. It might say for institutional purposes only, but we're in the military. Canned foods must be inspected upon delivery. Y'all know what you're looking for cans? Puncturing. Who said it? Someone said it. There you go. You guys know what a springer is? The easiest way to see if a can is contaminated. So if you take a can and you put it on the table, and if it can spin freely, there's something in it. Botulism is all those gases and stuff in the manufacturer. If there was a dent in there upon delivery, sometimes the food's going to seal that hole, and you'll have a springer. Easiest way to test for a springer is you put it on the deck and spin it. If it spins, no bueno. Spin, no bueno. It's called a springer.
What do you mean? You said put it on its side and spin it?
Put it directly on the deck, like you got a can of tomatoes right here. You put it directly on the deck. If you spin it, it's a springer. I mean, you can pop it too. You can push down, but if you don't think, if there's any buildup whatsoever, you know the can has that little, like when you open up a can, there's a little gap. That springer fills that gap. So if you spin it, I got it. Yep. Cheese must be received either natural or processed. If cheese has been held at 41 degrees and an inch-half layer is removed, then moldy portions are discarded. So, because we have limited resources underway, on deployment, whatever, say if we get bulk cheese and there's mold on it, we can cut a 1/4 inch off and it'll be good.
Navy standards.
There you go. That's Army standards, actually. U.S. Army Vet Inspector performs 3 types of product compliance evaluations under prime vendor. routine and special compliance. ABIs are responsible for providing timely, wholesome determination of food and deliveries. So just like this, just cut it away, you'll be fine, right? Special product compliance evaluation were performed to ensure items meet all requirements and specifications under which they were produced. Special evaluation may involve cooking. So, say water is a big thing, right? Testing water levels, calcium, chloride, whatever y'all test for. So, if our water is bad, if we use that water to cook food, what's gonna happen to the food? It's bad, right? Unless you boil it for how long? PHF, potentially hazardous food, shall be at temps of 41 degrees or below when received unless there is a specific law governing specific foods such as milk, shelled eggs, and shellfish. So, when we receive trucks in stores, if you guys are there, the first thing we have to do is check the temp on the truck. If that temp is over 41 degrees, no wonder. Because you don't know how long it's been over 41 degrees, right? And then they also have internal temperatures and temperatures on the truck. Just like when you're receiving stores via VERREP or UNREP, they have to give us the temp before we receive the stores. Just like in country, for KBR or the TCNs and their trucks, if their trucks aren't running right, we don't know what would happen to those eggs and milk. Questions? Am I going too fast? Are y'all late? There it goes. The 4-hour rule. PHFs that is held between 41 degrees and 140 for more than 4 hours must be discarded. So, big thing, mid-rats, right? What are usually mid-rats? Leftovers. How long does it take between dinner and mid-rats? So, if you're a PMT or if you're the doc on board, would you want to serve that food? I don't know. 4-hour rule. Food must be separated. Food must be separated according to meat, like beef, fish, lamb, pork, and labeled accordingly in storage containers when applicable. So when you go into a storeroom, the freezer, dry, dairy, whatever, there's a specific way we as CSs have to have that food in that storeroom. Not at a hospital, like on a ship and everything. It's called FIC order. So our FIC are our food identification codes. And it starts from A and ends from Z. All our beef will be in one spot, all our pork will be on one spot, all our chicken will be on one spot, all our poultry will be somewhere else. Why do we do that? Cross-contamination. So the reason why, saying if you're underweight right in a freezer, your freezer goes down. If the chicken juice goes onto the beef juice, it's no bueno, right? Termination of fitness agreements comes to the responsibility of the PMA. That's y'all's job. So if you're a baby doc or if you're a IDC in one day and you go to a shift, it's your job to inspect that food. Don't be like some docs where they just say, hey, is y'all good? Because if there's a screw up, what's going to happen? Who's going to come down on? The storeroom guy and the doc. Because he's going to be like, well, I did the inspection. He's like, well, we received this on the 12th. We did the inspection on the 12th. It's bad. Refrigeration temperature is 32 to 41 or 0 below for freezers. It says 0 below. What do you think is the lowest temperature we can have in the freezer? Negative 30. Who said negative 30? This isn't blood and medication, bro. Usually between 0 and negative 10 is what we like to do. Sometimes we keep it a little colder just to get the traffic that goes in that freezer. But we do keep, on small boys, we do keep some prescriptions and some blood in the freezer. So sometimes we'll have it as low as we can get, but I'm not going in there negative 30. Temp logs, check twice daily. Any prolonged, I don't know that word. Deviation for more than 4 hours must be reported. So we have to check our temps. We actually check them 4 times a day. Y'all are required to check it twice. I would just do random checks, but for test purposes, it's twice. And this is really important. Okay, this is a big one. Containers of bulk blocks will be stored 6 inches above the floor and 4 inches from the walls. How many inches do you think it should be from the fan coil units? That's on my test. 12 inches? Who said that? Just mark that. Potentially hazardous food that is reheated must be reheated within 2 hours from internal temp of 165, no less than 15 seconds. Y'all know your temps for pork, beef, chicken, and everything? No? So 165 is just a safe temp. That's what we put pork to. Ready-to-eat foods for commercial process sealed containers shall be heated to at least 141. So danger zones between what? 41 degrees and there you go. Infested foods, heavily infested foods, 7 or more living dead insects per pound of food. You will see this a lot in flour. No matter where we get our flour, sometimes we'll see little black things running around. If there's less than 7, we're good to go. If it's more than 7, no bueno. Just protein though. 72 hours in freezer will arrest the development of any infection. So if you want to get something rid of, just throw it in the freezer for 3 days, you'll be fine. To kill all insect products, keep it zero below for 2 weeks. To promote air circulation, fresh fruits and vegetables, 6 inches of clearance from tops of stacks and the opening of air ducts. That's actually 12, not 6. First in, first out. Y'all know what FIFO is? Make sure. So for food, the labels, the yellow labels, it says our receipt date. Just make sure the newest date's on the bottom.
So, are you saying that we need to check this 6-inch versus 12-inch
I'm gonna
on
pull
the
up on my phone.
instruction?
Yeah. So we have the P5010, the P7, the 46, and the CSR Bible. I don't know what y'all call your Bible, but it is 12 inches of boils. So I'll get that on my phone before we leave. Ground beef, internal temp 155 for 15 seconds. Shelled egg, internal temp 145 for 15 seconds. Eggs are PHF foods. Yep. That sounds like that would be on the test, because it was on my second test.
The eggs are always on.
Yeah. So we have 3 different types of eggs. We have shelled, liquid, and powdered. Food for future service beyond a specific meal must not be placed in a hot holding. So you have to chill it down first, and then you have to reheat it. Like for mid-rats, if they're going to serve the same thing they did for dinner, for mid-rats, you have to make sure they do the right process. They're not just going to keep it in the thaw box or in the warmer. They have to chill it down, and then they have to reheat it. Must be immediately cooled after cooking, must be cooled from 70 degrees within 2 hours, and from 70 to 140 within 4 hours. So you can't just throw it in a reefer, you have to do it gradually. Usually we do a double pan method in an ice bath, and it works just fine. Tightly cover food as soon as possible after the product temp reaches 41 degrees. We have to wrap it and tag it. Advanced food prep may be retained for the use up to 3 days from the original time of preparation. So if you're going through a galley and you're doing an inspection and you see Stephen Timmy made some ground beef for meatloaf that night and he did it the day before, as long as it's 3 days, he's fine. Anything more than that, no bueno. Leftovers may be retained for a 24-hour period if chilled. If chilled. May be retained for 5 hours if maintained at 140, which is why sometimes mid-rats is between 5 hours and 6 hours between meals. Frozen food, the ideal thawing temp is 36 degrees and 38. Frozen foods can be thawed in water at 70 degrees on shore facilities. On board ship, room temperature must not exceed 80 degrees for thawing in emergency situations. So if you see people just throwing chicken in a sink and running water over it, that's not the right way to do it. It happens a lot. Commercial meats, cheese, and salads. Pre-slicing is restricted to high turnover items. All salads in container must be used within 72 hours. That's if it's open. So if you see some pre-made pasta salad in a reefer, if it's closed, it's fine as long as it's not past the expiration date. But if it's open, no bueno. All meats and cheese must be consumed within 7 days after opening. 2 classes of temporary food operations. Restriction in general, usually 16 mesh to the inch screening mature food preparators. So this is for the, so you know the fly traps? Same thing. Pass up. Everybody knows what pass up means? Hazardous analogy of critical control points. So, it breaks it down. Established critical limit CL for the CCPS. Critical limits is in the criteria that must be met for each preventive measure associated with CCP. Established procedures for monitoring CCPS. Established corrective actions to be taken when monitoring shores critical limits. May not exceed. So what they're talking about critical limits is your 41 to 140, your 4-hour mark, and your 5-hour mark, and make sure they're using the 2-hour method to pull it down. A lot of numbers, I know. Pass up. Or HACCP now. Identify potentially hazardous foods, identify critical control points, establish critical control limits, establish procedures to monitor, establish the corrective actions, establish effective record keeping system, establish procedures for HACCP. For us, just like you guys, we record everything. So all our attempts, everything we receive, everything we issue out, everything's recorded. So we do that for one reason, so if something goes bad, you can track where it came from and how long you had it. So HACCP program is really actually important. I think, just like us, the warewashing is on y'all's test too. 6 steps to silverware washing process: sort, scrape, wash, rinse, sanitize, air dry. Water should be no less than 171. Temperatures are always important. The wash solution temperature should be maintained no less than 110 for manual ware washing and 120 for spray type ware washers. For mechanical ware washing, temp, sanitizing, rinse is 194. That's on my list. Iodine solution should have a minimum temp of 75 degrees and a concentration between 12.5 and 25 mgls. That's your solution. Steam jacket kettle should have at least 18-inch long chains on the safety valves. So we're going away from steam in the fleet. We're going to electric hoppers. We have steam here, but on the ships they don't have that valve no more. Steel wool is prohibited for cleaning equipment. Why do you think steel wool is prohibited? Scratches the metal and they hold bacteria. So just like sponges, you can't use sponges either, they hold bacteria. Microwave ovens shall be cleaned daily. Lighting, there must be at least 10-foot candles of light, 10-foot candle lighting in all food service areas. Lighting on food prep, ware washing work surfaces must have at least 50 candles of lighting. Temps of 100 degrees or more in shipboard spaces must be reported to medical department. So you guys just went over heat stress, right? Same thing. On a ship, engineering and the galley is the two main heat stress places. It's the only place on the ship that their equipment is not cooled with air conditioning or water. Dustless method of cleaning must be used, such as wet mops and vacuum cleaning. When possible, outside storage areas or enclosures must be located within 100 feet of food establishments. So, just like if you're in the field or field messing, everything has to be 100 feet, and then from the problem going in a minute. The PMA will inspect all food service establishments at least once a month. That's if you don't get a call saying, hey, go inspect it. So if they get a call about roaches, if they get a call about people being dirty, anything like that, you can, the XO or whoever you guys are with, can say, hey, I want an inspection, you all gotta do it. NAVMED 6240/1, food inspection report. You can find it in the Tri-Service Food Code, the 486, the P5010, P7, it's in all. Types of inspection: pre-operational inspection, routine inspection, follow-up inspection, HACCP inspection, complaint inspection. Inspection reports are based on 2 categories: critical and non-critical. So if you get one critical hit, you're fine, but if you get one non-critical hit, there's no bueno. What do you think a critical and non-critical hit is? Anybody?
Making a call to sugar gum.
So like cross-contamination, raw chicken and next to cooked food, stuff like that. Common sense. So if you see somebody cutting up some raw chicken and then going to prep a salad and not changing his gloves, what is that? There you go. That's a what hit. There you go. All foodborne illness is defined as an incident in which 2 or more persons experience a similar illness resulting from the ingestion of common foods. So what are some of the symptoms of foodborne illness? Vomiting and diarrhea, right? Foodborne infections have longer incubation periods than foodborne intoxication. It takes usually 8 hours or less for staphylococcus to cause symptoms. Staphylococcus is in what kind of foods? It says it right there. Potato salad and custard pies. Why?
Eggs.
How many different types of eggs do we have? What are they? What is the receiving temperature if you're receiving eggs from a truck or a ship? 41 or below, right? Questions?
For that critical and non-critical you're talking about, when you say that they fail, does it mean one or the other, or both of them have to fail? So like if I get one critical, I fail?
No. If you get 2 criticals, you fail. Depending on what it is, you can fail. That's up to you and the IDC. So non-critical, you can have 3. If you have more than 3, it's a fail. Okay. That's it. Gonna help you all out? The big thing is those 6 inches off the deck, 8 from the bulkhead, and then 12 from the fan. And I'll pull that up on the wall for you guys. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Yeah. again, so I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But I found it last year.
Yeah, so it was, there's 16 in this class, okay, and there's only 11 used right now. Over the last 2 days.
Thanks, boss.
Yeah, man.
Hey, let me know what you guys think you're doing.
Just shoot me a text real quick.
Yeah.
616.
Gotcha. I'm just gonna call you in a minute.
Okay. 821. I know someone up to that. Yeah, they said that the. Hello? Yeah.
Like where do you find them? MCCS Wi-Fi.
I call it on the volunteer roster.
Or the CLBs.
Yeah, if you send it to me, I can put it in for big flag safety for the whole bridge. Jason.m. You send it from the blue side or green side?
Couple weeks.
Okay.
It's just in my car right now. The chief hasn't been around. We was there Friday.
Yeah, no worries.
I wasn't. You was. I told you on Friday. Mad at me. Caught that. Sorry. Unless you have 50, 10, 1.
Hey, you guys need a break or anything? Yeah, good.
Okay, so here's the camera. You start over there in that corner, try to introduce yourself so you can see who you are. And then after that, just stand and send you the mic.
Oh, yeah, the stream. Okay, yeah. Alright, easy. I appreciate it.
Stay right here.
Alright, y'all settle down. Alright, good morning. My name is Jason Sharif. I'm the PMT of 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines. Been around division for a little bit, jumped around from victory unit to victory unit. Might have worked for a few of you guys. Alright, so today we're going to be going over the tuberculosis program. It's probably one of the biggest programs right now in division that CJRI loves to hit everybody on. I'm not going to really read everything off the slide. I'm just going to see like the stuff that I saw in exams and stuff like that. You guys okay with that? Alright. So the purpose was to provide a policy and guidance controlling tuberculosis. Alright. Anybody knows what tuberculosis is in general? What is it?
It's a respiratory, not infection.
You got it. You're good. Say it's a respiratory infection. Alright. Early detection and respiratory isolation of persons infected with TB significantly reduces the chance of the infection. Alright. Draw your recordings. I seen the third one, the NAVMED 6224/9, the monthly evaluation. Alright. So all these right here pretty much are for those people that come positive with tuberculosis, right? So everybody here got the little PPE, the little bubble in your skin. Alright. So somebody pretty much gets a positive one, then you start your initial tuberculosis risk assessment. Alright, you fill it out, and then the monthly evaluation is when they take INH. Anybody here has been on INH? Alright, so I've been on INH twice. So you take a pill every day for 9 months. It sucks. But so the monthly evaluation for patients, and then of course when you put in the adult immunization record. I've never really seen anything about children's TB, but it's also something good to know. Alright. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the complex bacteria that causes TB. It's red. I write it down. I've seen it before. Alright. Personnel diagnosed with latent tuberculosis based on a positive skin or blood test without active disease are not infectious. For us, because we're medical personnel, that usually always puts us at high risk So if we're anything above 5 millimeters in duration or 10 millimeters in duration, usually that's like an eye opener. Like, all right, let's take another test and see what's up. But a lot of guys, a lot of your Marines or sailors, they'll be all the way up to 15 millimeters in duration, how to measure it, and we'll get into that. They don't necessarily have to be positive. All Navy and Marine Corps sessions must be tested for LTBI unless there is documentation of previous TB infection. Who here is born outside the U.S.? Alright, so I was born outside the U.S. Some people receive something called the BCG vaccine. Alright, and that will make you pop positive like forever. And that's how I had it. A lot of my Marines right now also are positive left and right. That's because they got vaccinated. That's why you have to always make sure they have documentation of that vaccine that they received. I don't have it, so I have to keep taking it. Also sucks, but division. All personnel must be screened for LTBI or clinically evaluated for persons with prior LTBI diagnosis. During their operation suitability screening or tested documented with 6 months prior to reporting aboard commission vessel is acceptable. There's always like a screener that you find in the records, but now since everything is done online, so a lot of people actually like kind of miss that part. If you or anybody that you work with are like in the medical records, whatever, make sure that they always know and always keep those tuberculosis papers, even the initial, if they have any of the medications, even the screener that you have to do once a year. All right, PHA, using the NAVMED 6224/8, individuals answering yes to one or more questions will be an increased risk and require LTBI skin test. I've seen this one too. All personnel prior to or within 6 months of arrival on a commissioned vessel. It is no longer required that all personnel must have LTBI test results or be clinically evaluated for persons prior to LTBI diagnosis, documented with a 6 months prior to separation or retirement. It's no longer, but you want to look out for your Marines, you want to do it just to put it in the record. You wouldn't do it. The approved tuberculin skin test material for the routine MAN2 test is the tween 80 stabilized, never seen that way. 5 tuberculin ULIS equivalent. So I was about to ask you that. PPD stands for purified protein derivative. I've seen that on the test. I've also seen a question that says which one is not a vaccine. PPD is not a vaccine, it's just a protein. So I've seen those. Record the results in NAVMED 6230/4 and 6230/5. The electronic systems, of course, you can put it on MERS. Usually I put a note on Alta, and of course you have to put. You got to read it between 48 to 72 hours. So try not to place it on Thursdays unless you want to meet up with them on the weekend and read their test. Am I going too fast for you guys? Or? Must be read within 48 to 72 hours, just like we said. Measure in duration to the nearest whole millimeter. If a person returns more than 72 hours, mark not read and apply on opposite column. If a person does not return at all, enter not read and recall that person. Recording results 0 millimeters or 0. I always like to write 0. That was also a question I've seen before, just like confusion. If you heard, and all you guys work with Marines, 50% of my tests always go not read because the Marines just disappear. Since we're out here, anybody knows how to read the PPD test? No one? Alright, so when you put it in the skin, underneath the skin, if it's positive, it's going to have an induration, alright? So it's going to look like a little mountain. And what you want to do is, what I like to do actually, is I like to get a pen and I draw a line until that mountain stops my pen. And then I do it on the other side until it stops it too, and then I measure between the ending points. And that's how you get a perfect induration, alright? So I see a lot of people in the records, they put a note that it was red. It doesn't mean it's positive, it just means that the person might be sensitive to it or anything. But positive only when it has an induration. You have a question? No. I think this is a pretty decent picture. Like you see where the edges of the mountains are? So that's where I usually like to draw my line here until my pen stops. I do the same thing, and then I measure this distance. And that's the best way to read it. I haven't seen this on the test, but this is, kind of like FYI. Quantiferin gold test, or QFTs, that's by far the most accurate way of knowing if somebody has been introduced to tuberculosis or not. It's a pretty big headache. It's hard to put the lab in. You go to the hospital, and where's fire? Yeah, 3Y just did like 15 of them for me. It's like the hardest thing to get, but it's actually pretty accurate. A positive POT result should be prompt to saying public health and medical intervention is a positive TST reaction. Must be recorded in detail in the medical record, date of blood draw, result in specific units, blah, blah, blah. So, for you guys also in your battalions or your clinics, again, this is FYI, if you guys have patients that you do not know in the past either received the vaccine or they were positive, and there's always this vague area where you don't know what happened. This will solve all that. All right, all you gotta do is just put a test, they go to the hospital. If your MO is pretty serious, then you shouldn't worry about it. You know, send them to the hospital, they'll do like 5 blood draws or whatever, and it'll be in their record forever showing that they got introduced or not. Based on its historical TST results associated with routine, non-targeted screening, the rate of newly identified LTBI converters is normally no more than 1 to 2% of the personnel tested per year in most Navy and Marine Corps. So again, I've never seen that, but it's right, so must be true. If the rate of newly identified converters is 2 times greater than the expected baseline conversion rate of the command among any group tested, contact the cognizant Navy preventive medicine units. I've seen that, and I've also seen where are the preventive medicine units, so if you guys want to look that up, why or Virginia or whatever. That could be 2 questions right there. Alright, the vaccine I was telling you guys. Alright, so the previous bacillus, whatever that is, BCG immunization. A positive TST reaction in a BCG immunized individual should be regarded as indicative of TB infection. These individuals must be evaluated for active TB infections prior to receiving treatment for LTBI. Again, this is a vaccine that when you're born in third world countries, they kind of just give it to you. So I kind of have no choice, but I had no paperwork, so I still have to get treated. False negative TSTs, and this is the majority of the TSTs reactions you're gonna get. Immunosuppression, or received after a short period after parental live, whatever that word, virus. TST may be placed on the same day or 4 weeks after live vaccine. So if you give somebody yellow fever, don't give them like a PPD or fever. You can, but I just don't. And always try to go on the left arm. Somebody has like tattoos everywhere, and they have them all over them. Just figure it out, mark it out with a marker or something. Pretty hard now, actually. Pregnancies should be administered as appropriate. I would leave that to the MOs. I think if she's pregnant, she should have come to you anyways. And the TST allergy, defer until full evaluation. I've never seen anybody allergic to protein since it's a PPD, but you never know. Who knows that one person? So, let us in. What's up?
No, I said that some of those guys that say they're getting gains aren't getting gains.
Oh, bro, okay. Sure. No, it's pretty funny. Everybody hear what he said? You don't want to. It's not that funny anyway. All right. Evaluate all individuals with a TST in duration of 5 millimeters or to determine if their test is positive. 5 millimeter or greater. To determine if their test is positive based on a risk factor outlined on the table below. So this right here is where all your money is at. All right, and this in the instructions, you'll see this. I think it's like on the 8th or 9th page. And pretty much this is just going to tell you everything you need to know about that person, either being a high risk, medium risk, or low risk. So again, for a high risk patient is any people that recent close contact active TB disease patients, persons with fiber optic or other changes on chest radiograph consist with a prior TB, and patients suspected of having active TB disease. That's why if you ever see that patient, like the TB screener, they always have like a list of countries, because these are the countries that are pretty much high risk. So if you deploy and you've been to any of these countries, that immediately puts you in this category. So if you do a test and they come back with anything above 5 millimeter in duration, again, in duration, the little mountain I told you guys about, anything above 5 millimeters, then you start like, all right, let me give you another PPD and hopefully you don't come back positive or you're going to start your treatment. A medium risk would be anything above 10 millimeters. Recent immigrants within the last 5 years from high TB prevalent countries, microbacteriology laboratory personnel, and persons with clinical conditions that place them at an increased risk. Most of us here when we deploy, that puts us in the middle category. And And the low risk is anybody above 15 millimeters is person with no risk factors of TB. So if somebody doesn't work in a medical environment, just regular civilian, never been introduced, that would be you. Any questions so far? Still going good? Keep going? Alright, evaluation of positive tests. Appropriate history and physical examination of the NAVMed 6224/7 as the initial tuberculosis exposure risk assessment. The chest x-ray, that's usually does, like you do that right after that, should be examined for fiber optic fringes. Pregnant women also should have active TB ruled out with the chest x-rays using appropriate shielding. So yeah, a person with suspected active disease should be masked and isolated immediately. I'm laughing because if somebody's like coughing blood and they say they're positive, like, you know, shit just like shut down the plane. That's a bad thing. Alright, if active TB is ruled out and the individual meets the criterion for LTBI, the INH treatment shall be initiated unless medically contraindicated. So for the test purposes, this is the INH doses, 9 months. But for your battalions or your clinics, now your MO should order something that's only 12 weeks. So a lot of Marines prefer that because I started almost 22, before the last with 22 Marines on INH, and then we scattered in Europe, and then now they're all back in my office. So we can restart it. I'm wrong. Alright. Anybody hear me still? Alright, good. INH 5 milligram per kilogram is 300 milligram max daily for 9 months is preferred treatment regimen to accomplish 270 daily doses within 12 months. INH 50 milligrams per kilogram, 900 milligram max twice a week for 9 months is an alternative regimen that may be used only in combination with directly observed therapy. That's what we would like, but it doesn't happen. You're not going to go with people to their houses unless you're that great at performing good on you. Routine lab monitoring is necessary for those individuals whose baseline liver function tests are abnormal. Clinical monthly follow-up. So if you're going to give somebody INH or somebody's on any of these medications, you have to follow up with them monthly. You got to do like their vitals, and you got to ask them like a whole bunch of questions. So the monthly follow-up of individuals receiving therapy for LTBI must be conducted until treatment is completed. NAVMed 6224/9, the monthly evaluation of patients receiving therapy for latent tuberculosis infection. If you guys do this, you put in the record, make sure you make as many copies as you can, because that poor Marine or sailor, if they lose one of these months, they have to restart all 9 months. So like, don't be that corner, please. It's just a bad day. Missed doses or interrupted LTBI treatment is important. So do not restart the 9 months daily INH regimen if at least 270 doses of INH can be administered within a 12 months period. I've had people that had 269 doses. And I was like, the instructions pretty clear, dude. Gotta start it over. Especially when you tell your sergeant major that, it's not the best day. If treatment has been interrupted for more than 2 months, patients must be examined to exclude active TB disease. Again, guys, even if they tell you they have them, if there's no proof, restart. Active TB responsibilities. Commanding officer or officer in charge must notify the cognizant Navy Preventive Medicine Unit, or NEMU, and the local health department as soon as possible. Personnel who are enrolled in a contact investigation but are separating from the service before 8 to 10 week repeat tuberculosis skin test. When in doubt, guys, if you guys are about to deploy, or like right now, for instance, like my battalion just decided to go to the field for like a week and a half, and I have to test all these people for CGI purposes, right? What did I say earlier? What is the alternative for the PPD? Right, the QFT. So that's just for for your information, but PPD is not always the best thing to, especially with Marines, because like it's this little area, you can't tap it, you can't hit it, you can't pick at it, and that's like the first thing Marines do in my office while they're waiting, they start picking at it. So it's not really the best thing, but that's an alternative method for you guys. Report and requirements. The MER or the medical event report must be submitted for all new cases of active TB or suspected new cases of active TB by the ship or station within 24 hours. See that on the test. Submit a second medical event report in active TB cases when the disease is either ruled in or out. All right, the protection of the non-infected minimize aerosolization of respiratory excretion. Transfer persons with known or suspected active TB to a medical treatment facility as soon as practicable. And the medical department personnel must wear a particular respiratory N95 minimum when working in the rooms. Anybody had one of those N95 masks before? Yeah, you can't just wear them. You actually have to get fit tested for them. People don't really understand that because I've seen people where I literally put my finger here and I'm like, we're breathing fine. So there's a machine now, or you can do like the old school, like you used to wear like a mask and like spray. I don't know if anybody did that, but yeah, it's a lot of work. And not every PMC can do that. Like if you have to be RPPM, a respiratory program or something manager. These are the only people that are certified to get fit tested. I think that was the last slide. Does anybody have any questions or any stories about TB in general? Anybody who's been in division or ringside period? Nothing? All right, cool. Which one? Yep. You want me to teach another class?
No, I think someone's still. Oh, you want to teach that?
No, I'm just trying to get you guys out of here, you know? I rushed through. For sure. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never opened it before.
I think it's pretty basic.
All right, cool. All about basic. Actually, funny story for you guys. My first deployment as a PMT, I was in Guantanamo Bay, and I went in and I got a questionnaire, a list of saying like you gotta talk to detainees because these guys have been like others in the past. So I'm asking this dude questions. I'm like, yo, do you sweat at night? He's like, yes. I'm like, do you have rapid weight loss? He's like, yes. I'm like, do you have blood in your sputum? He's like, yes. And this guy's like coughing in my face the whole fucking time. And I was like, maybe I should just step away from this TV. So don't be that guy. Now I realize how important it is, but back then I just wanted to go to jail.
We had a Marine who but he was positive for TB as well. But he was in the barracks at the time, and he went and saw the medical officer, told him he was coughing up blood. Officer sent him away. He came back to his barracks, and then the duty officer came and got me, since I was a former living there at the time. He had looked like coffee grounds and blood mixed together in the sink. So I thought it was a stomach ulcer. So I was like, just go to the ER, man. They'll take care of you. He ended up getting flighted down that night in San Diego because they couldn't treat him at Pendleton Hospital.
So they had to like isolate people around him and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was like 20 Marines that they had to do testing for and stuff like that. It was pretty serious. Yeah, you test everybody.
Okay, so this next one's not going to be linked to the course. I'll have to link it.
You want me to just read off the screen, pretty much?
Yeah, essentially.
What is the course anyway?
It's malaria. No,
Medical
reporting. No, malaria.
The Army instructions. Hey man, I don't appreciate all the fun. Oh, what? Coach. About my baby gonna win it again. Like 3 years in a row now they make the Super Bowl, man. Come on, they gotta be doing something right. Yeah, she. Hey man, let me tell you something, all right? Somebody told you right now you can be HQ, all right? All you gotta do is talk to this guy before the test.
So you know how.
Well, I knew that anyway. All right, there you go. All the homies in Japan. You're no different than Tom Brady. You're practically Tom Brady already. Yeah. Hit up the homies in Japan. You know what?
I was like, I've track, so I can just drive the track.
I'm studying now, and I know in 2 months I'll have no test.
So I changed it.
So I went over there the other day, I was talking to the girl. Oh, yeah. High school.
And then they were bachelor.
Hand taps. She was like, yeah, you don't want to push classes.
Kind of route.
Thank you, Josh. It's such a small amount of things.
They don't really know how to get a couple. They're like shutting down.
Like, you know, that she was like, nah, all these classes, don't wake up early, and be here at 4. I thought that was like, you coming to like 9. I'll go to about like,
I thought they would have
there you go. That works. Oh, okay, that's not bad. The instruction's like 150 pages.
He didn't extend it after.
Oh, that's all you're teaching? Oh, okay.
Alright, let's update the queue real quick so we can run through this one.
Oh, shoot your eye out.
We didn't have cool shit like that growing up. Alright. Tech manual, the NCIDC tab 106250.1. Apparently you guys just have the glossary, so we're gonna go over some of those, right? Chemoprophylaxis, method of disease prevention by taking specific medications, like, wait here took doxy before they did work. There you go. You guys missed that? I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't even know how to read this word, but chemoprophylaxis. No, we got that. Let's say, that one, yeah. Side effects from,
Quinine and quinine.
sure, that one, quinine or quinidine, reversible with lower dosages or termination of the drug. Clinical cure, elimination of malaria symptoms, sometimes without eliminating all parasites, and directly observed therapy, DOT. That's what we just talked about in the last section of the TV. Most effective method of ensuring drug compliance means you literally stand them in front of you, take this pill, or line them up and you can see like people throwing their pill. See that? Erythrocytic stage, the malaria parasite's life cycle and infecting and developing within the red blood cells. By the way, this instruction is about malaria if you guys missed that part. Gotta make sure. Exuerythrocytic stage in the plasmodium life cycle when developing in liver cells. Gametocytes, sexual stage of malaria parasites which form in red blood cells. Hemolysis, destruction of red blood cells. Malaria causes hemolysis when malaria parasites. Anybody here got malaria before? Yeah, I guess I just get everything. Yeah, it's not a good thing. You lose a lot of weight. And hepatocytes, liver cells. I grew up like in the Middle East, so we get a lot of like now. Not good. Monocyte, a stage of malaria parasites found in liver cells. After sporocytes invade liver cells, some develop into latent forms called monocytes. Incubation period. Time period beginning when malaria parasites are injected by mosquito bite, ending when symptoms develop. Incubation periods range from 70 to 40 days. That was on test. Lemon eucalyptus oil. An insect repellent registered by the EPA that contains oil from the leaves of eucalyptus tree. Products contain a range of 30 to 40% of active ingredients. Anybody ever got these? Every time? Really? You gotta do it every time, man. They give us that nasty beat, you know? That one that makes your lips go numb if it hits it. No. Alright, Amerizoid, the end product of an asexual reproductive stage. Cyst located in the outer stomach wall of mosquitoes where sporocytes development take place. Parasitemia, level of malaria parasites in blood. No fever or other symptoms except for an enlarged spleen accompanying findings of malaria. malaria parasites in the blood. The conditions are referred to as asymptomatic parasitemia. A presumptive anti-release therapy, or also known as PARP. Treatment of the dormant liver stage of patients infected with Plasmodium vivax or Plasmodium ovale, which is the two of these malarias out there. Anybody know the third one? I don't remember the There's vivax ovale. I've seen them on the test before. Paroxysms, a sudden attack or increase in the intensity of symptoms, usually occurring in intervals. Bicardin, an insect repellent registered by the EPA. This is a colorless, nearly odorless liquid active ingredient that is used in an insect repellent against biting flies, mosquitoes, chiggers, and ticks. Product contains a range of 5 to 20% of the active ingredients. I've seen a question on test one time that says, what is the most effective way to repel mosquitoes? Anybody know? So,
Mosquito netting?
that was actually it. Mosquito, because clothing is still, mosquito netting, that was the one. I actually put T, which is completely wrong. Presumptive treatment. Administration of anti-malarial drugs in suspected area cases before result of laboratory tests are available to confirm diagnosis. Radical treatment. Treatment intended to achieve the cure of Plasmodium vivax or Plasmodium ovale malaria requires primaquine treatment, which destroys latent, stages parasites in the liver. Radical cure. Complete elimination of malaria parasites from the body, but specifically hypnozoids in the liver. The rapid diagnostic test. Words, man.
You're the scientist.
I'm gonna try it. What?
You're a scientist now. I have to read this.
Immunochromatogram. There you go. Immunochromatogram test that detect malaria antigens in blood, and some may be able to differentiate between certain species of plant. Is there any PMPs in here? Huh?
Yeah, there's the third one you were looking for.
Where's it?
There's the third one you were looking for.
Calciferin, there you go. Alright, that word. Reappearance of Plasmodium falciparum due to insufficient treatment of drug-resistant parasites. The only reason I really wanted to remember that because I've seen on the test, like, what are the 3 types of, or they'll be like, hey, this and this, what is the other type of malaria? So we have, where was it? Vivax, ovale, and falciparum. Relapse. A repeated attack weeks, months, or sometimes years after initial Plasmodium vivax or Plasmodium ovale infection due to the reinfection of red blood cells or malaria parasites that persist in the liver cells. Schizogony. Asexual reproductive state of malaria parasites. In red blood cells, schizogony entails development of a single trophozoid into numerous merozoites. A similar process happens in the infected liver cells. I'm doing pretty good for these big words. Proud of myself. Alright, severe malaria is complicated malaria.
Great.
Tough?
Beautiful definition.
Oh yeah, that's it. Perfect. Sporozoids, stage of malaria parasites injected into the bloodstream by biting infected mosquitoes.
I think that's it.
Alright, suppressive treatment intended to prevent clinical symptoms of parasitemia through destruction of parasites in the red blood cells. And the terminal prophylaxis is chemoprophylaxis given to individual at the time that they leave areas that are endemic for Plasmodium vivax or ovale. Anybody know how long after you come back you have to keep taking them?
7 years. It depends on the meds you're taking.
Depends on the medication. Then trophozoid, early developmental stage of blood schizons. Schizons. Yeah, that's what schizons. I'm glad this is over. This was rough. It really was. Wasn't prepared for that one.
I
I think anybody could be.
I don't think that's
I
really.
think I did pretty good. Some of the words were
No.
Shiz knots or the shiz way to whatever it's called.
shiznit.
Shiznit.
Go ahead and
And again, this one's not linked to your guys' drive, okay? I'll get it in there by the end of the day. But it's pretty basic. Really, you should probably just pull up the reference for this one and go right to Appendix C. That'd be your best bet, instead of worrying about the PowerPoint. This is just like one page on the reference, right? Yeah. So page 1 of 10 will go over everything. I'll listen on the other side, make sure that just sounds good.
Good morning.
Morning.
You guys tired or what? It's EAP, man. Alright, so with this instruction, by the way, I'm H1 Atencio. I'm over at headquarters battalion. I've met you before. It's probably here or at the schoolhouse at FTV. That's where I was at last. So I see some familiar faces, alright? So with this instruction, you guys only need to know Appendix C, alright? I was under the impression you guys needed to know the whole reference. So there's another PowerPoint that goes along with that reference, alright? And it talks about particularly about the actual reports, when to report it, who reports it, and all the different diseases that are reported, alright? So I can go over some of that stuff with you. It's just general knowledge. You're going to see it again. You're probably going to ask those questions anyways, alright? So I'll briefly hit those points, and then we can talk about Appendix C. Alright, so what's in Appendix C? Who's looked at it already? Crickets? No one? Alright, so it's just those diseases that are going to be reported, and then what time frame you have to report them in. Literally, that is all you have to know, is those diseases, which ones are reported within 24 hours, which ones are not. Easy?
Yeah.
So I could literally just say that and walk out the door and I'm done, right? But I'll go over the whole instruction with you so that way if you guys see other questions, or if you have any questions in particular, just bring them up when we talk about it. Here you go? Alright, so what are some of the studying techniques you guys use? Alright, just around the room. It's different.
Flashcards.
Flashcards. Alright, what else?
Writing it out.
Writing it out. Okay, what else? Quizlet. Quizlet's good. Blue Jacketeer. Alright, that's another one. Alright, what else? What's that? The what? Okay, discussions. Alright, so me up here talking about it and breaking the whole instruction down, right? What else?
Podcast.
Ditties. Okay? Does that help you guys out? Alright. You guys come up with some crazy ditties. Alright, there's some clean ones and some dirty ones I've heard. But hey, you guys are here in the EAP, and you guys are here as a group, right? You're all trying to make rank, correct? You're all trying to be HM2s, right? So share that information with each other, okay? If you've got a ditty that no one knows about, share it with each other, all right? Doesn't matter. I've heard some crazy ones that have actually helped me remember it, okay? So share that information with each other, all right? What else do we have?
Podcast.
Podcasts, all right? What's one cool thing about this EAP that's going on right now? You got a live feed, right? All right, so you can watch it later on. You can pull up the stuff and watch me teach it to you, or you can just listen to it, all right? So I'm catering to all the different learning styles, right? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We're not really doing hands-on, but you get the idea. Okay, what else works for you guys?
Practice tests.
Practice tests, all right? That helps me out a lot too. I usually just take the test. As a matter of fact, when I went to the EAP for E7, I took all the quizzes and I just took them over and over and over again. All right, and it actually worked for me. All right, repetition, that's another one of those things that actually works pretty well. What else? What about just reading the instruction? Does anybody actually do that? Nobody wants to read that instruction, right? Okay, so we're reading an instruction. They are boring, they are dry. No one wants to read an instruction from page to page, right? So what do you do when you go through that instruction? What's the first thing you should know about that instruction? The name and the number, right? What the instruction is for, what the name of it is, right? What numbers are associated with letters, right? If there's an update, we'll obviously study the most updated one. Okay? If your bib references an instruction and there's an updated instruction, which one do you need to study? The one that's on the bib. That's the one you're going to be tested on. Okay? Even though it's outdated, you need to know the one that's on the bib. Be familiar with the changes in the new instruction, but know the one that's on the bib. Everybody tracking on that? Okay. So when you break down the instruction, look for key points. All right. read through the whole instruction and find important things. All right, what could somebody ask me out of that instruction? Okay, that's what helps me out and break down an instruction. I can break down a 47-page instruction in like 1 or 2 pages, just on basic information to know about the instruction. Because honestly, a lot of it is UMed, blah, 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 responsible to this, this, and this, and this, and there's like a whole page about their responsibility when really it's just one little thing, right? So break that down, dissect those instructions, all right? All right, so like I said, Appendix C is literally just a list of diseases, right? So I'm going to go down into the actual instruction and pick out some key points that you may see on the exam, all right? So first of all, what is medical event reporting? Who knows what that is? Who's actually done one? Who's heard of one? Anything? Anyone has any idea what that is? All right. What do you think it might be? What would I use that for? All right, so I got a list of diseases, right? And I got some report that I have to send off. Why is that important?
Because you send it to the CDC, they do the studies, they let them know what's where. That's how they come up with what strand to vaccinate for the next year. Just a big list of studies.
Absolutely. Everybody hear that? All right, so that's exactly what it's for, okay? It's to identify diseases, anything that's reportable, all right, to help other people if they start seeing these things. Make sense? All right, so that's pretty much the whole point of the reporting system and what it's for. All right, and that's why BUMED has the instruction to put that out. Now, who identifies these diseases? Who deems that these things are the priority that these things are reported? Who do you think does that?
CDC.
CDC, right? All right, so we're talking about diseases, so you should automatically assume if one of the answers says CDC, that's probably the safe choice, right? It's always going to be CDC. Any type of disease reporting, any type of studies, any type of stuff like that, CDC, all right? So what is its purpose? All right, the manual provides guidance for unit-level Navy Marine Corps personnel who have responsibilities for medical surveillance and medical event reporting. It applies to naval medical personnel and research laboratories. All right, why do research laboratories have to be involved in that?
So they can know what to engineer the vaccines.
Okay, so what to look for, all right, how to develop things, all right, and how to provide that information out to everyone else so they know the things to look for. Make sense? All right. All that. All right, so reporting. To search for unreported events in a systematic way, preventive medicine personnel and medical treatment facilities use lab results, the electronic medical record system, and another system called Essence. Who's heard of that? Nobody. Okay. Neither have I. All right. So it stands for Early Notification of Community-Based Disease Epidemics. So if you ever see the word Essence, it is one of those. All right. Reporting requirements. The healthcare provider who diagnoses or identifies a reportable disease is the individual required by BUMED to report it. So who has to report it? By the policy. Whoever diagnosed it, right? Whoever found it, whoever diagnosed it, they are required to report that. Research labs that identify events sufficiently enough classify as reportable in accordance with paragraph 1 through 6. They report their findings to the Cognizance Navy Environmental and Preventive Medicine Unit. All right, so NEPU gets all that information from those people reporting. All right, so there are different categories for classifications. All right, so you got suspected, probable, and confirmed, based on specific clinical laboratories or epidemiological criteria. So where do they get this criteria from? Where do you think they get it from? CDC, right? All these reporting agencies and people that do research. Our events reported as probable or suspected must ultimately be confirmed in the medical event reporting system. All right, we talked about which systems those were. What's one of those systems we talked about? Essence, right? All right, so outbreaks. What is an outbreak? Man, you guys are rough.
Like a multiple amount of people get the same disease or illness.
Okay, so we're talking like a population, a large scale, right? An outbreak of a disease. Okay, so
things that would consider it an outbreak and things that why we would take that into account into reporting it, okay? So, published outbreak investigations. So if it is published, if it's an outbreak that's been published and you start to see signs of that, it has to be reported. Anything causing hospitalizations, major hospitalizations, right? Increasing numbers, all right? People with the same illnesses, same signs and symptoms, and they're being hospitalized. Highly infectious organisms, if they're known. Rapid rate of numbers of affected persons. So if you have 1 or 2 people right now, and like in 3 hours you've got like 50, is that something I want to report? Yes, all right. Require more sophisticated lab testing. All right, so anything that's outside of the normal that can be tested in the lab is something that probably should be reported. That. All right, so reports can either be 2 types: urgent or routine when reporting. All right, what do you think makes the report urgent? It's a time frame, right? But what would make that something that I need to report that quickly? We just talked about some of those things, right? What's that?
The more aggressive that it is,
Okay.
whatever the sickness is.
So we talked about the specific disease, and we talked about those different things that classify as an outbreak that's reported. All those things fall into that same criteria. Okay, so those are things that have to be reported within 24 hours for urgent. Okay, anything else you can report no later than 30 days after their identification. All right, so which one's 24 hours? Okay, what about routine?
7 days.
Under 30 days. Okay, no later than 30 days. All right, so reporting systems. All right, so we talked about one of them. What was it? Essence. All right, so who's heard of the RSI? Nobody. All right. Okay, so that is another reporting system utilized to report these diseases. Okay, it's called Disease Reporting System Intranet. All right. So in DRSI, there's a module that talks to CHCS. All right, so if you spot labs that are suspect of any of these diseases, it automatically flags it and makes it easier so that you can literally click buttons and it automatically sends these reports out. All right, so that's why DRSI is pretty important. You usually won't see that unless like you're at big hospitals and stuff like that, or if you're actually in charge of medical event reporting. All right, so what's that system called? DRSI. All right. All right, so what if I don't have access to that system? All right, what do I do? What if my internet's down? What do?
Call it in.
I just say, screw it, it's gonna die, right? Screw it. Or do we find another way to report it?
Find another way.
Find another alternate way, all right? So, when connectivity is temporarily limited, reporters should use the 30-day window allowed for routine reports. All right, that is your last-ditch effort. You have no way to communicate it, all right? So you can report it, all right? Anything urgent, if you have it, can be sent by priority enable message, encrypted email, or by phone. So what are those 3 ways? Phone, enable message, and what? Encrypted email, all right? So those are the ways you can send it out. Security classifications, all right? They are typically classified as unclassed unless it is deemed of higher level by an authority, all right? So all of them are usually unclassed. When mailing anything out, they're all going to be reported as for official use only. Why? What type of information is on it? PII, medical information, patient information, all right? So for official use only, we handle it just like you do all medical records. All right, so what do NetMuse do in order for consultation for these things, all right? So they confirm this, they do confirmation assistance so they can help you identify these things and see if it's something that can be reported or needs to be reported. All right, they can give you general MER assistance, so putting together the report if you need to. They can provide you lab services and sample collections if needed, and outbreak response or study design, so they can provide you with latest studies and data that's been put out for that to help you determine if it's something that needs to be reported. And then disease surveillance and MER training, so they can provide you the training so you're not sitting here like for the first time and not knowing what you got to do with it, okay? All right, that is medical event reporting, and that's the whole instruction, okay? So I talked for like, what, 15 minutes about it? The instruction is probably like 21 pages, all right? So it's really not that bad. Break down those key points, find the things that are important. So what are the things you probably should know about this program?
How to report it.
What systems are reported in? What else?
How to report it.
How to report it. The types of reports. Okay. Time frames. Okay. Who it needs to be reported to. All right. So those are the things you can look through your instruction and figure out. All right. You don't have to beat your head over the head with the entire book. All right. Find those key points and remember those. All right. So for the appendixes, right? So appendix A talks about influenza. You don't need to know that, but if you happen to see that, appendix A, influenza. All right. Appendix B is going to talk about how to put that report together. All right. And it actually gives you a little format on what to look for. All right. So the date of onset, reporting command, name of reporter. So basically all the demographics that are going on that report. So if I have no idea how to put this thing together, I can at least get the information. And where do I go to find that? Appendix B of this instruction, right? All right, so Appendix C, that's the one that you guys really need to know for your exam. All right, so these are the diseases that need to report within what time frame?
24 hours.
Okay, so what classification is that?
Urgent.
Urgent, right? Everything else goes routine, under 30 days, right? All right, and there's all the diseases. All right, so, like I said, somebody mentioned ditties, right? This is probably one of those ones you could create a ditty to help you remember them, right? Because there's quite a few of them. That is Appendix C. Anybody can see it. It's a whole page with a bunch of diseases, all right? So, at a minimum, you should know which ones. The ones that need to be reported within 24 hours, right? Those urgent ones, all right? So focus on those first. Try to get those down and memorize those, so that way if you spot them on the exam, more than likely they'll ask you which one of these diseases has to be reported within 24 hours. And you can spot that fairly quickly. Check? Alright, and this is basically all of the diseases that are reportable. Some are urgent, some are not urgent. Alright, so the ones that need to be reported within 24 hours. Anthrax, botulism, diphtheria, hemorrhagic fever, influenza, type A, malaria, measles, meningococcal, any type of outbreak of disease clusters, plague, polio, rabies, SARS, smallpox, TB, tularemia. Alright? So what can you tell by all those diseases? They're pretty serious diseases, right? If you look at all these other ones, are they serious? Yeah, kind of. Alright, so you got E. coli, gonorrhea, FA, B, C, alright? So those are common diseases, alright, but the other ones are usually linked to what? So yeah, some are linked to bioweapons, but what else? What did we talk about earlier? Large population. They can cause outbreaks, right? And they can cause a huge mess. Alright, so that's why those diseases are important and why they have to be reported within 24 hours. Make sense? Alright, I wish I had a way to help you guys remember those diseases, but I don't, besides knowing that they're pretty bad diseases to have. So, know which ones need to be reported within 24 hours. The rest are reported when? Under 30 days, right? And that is it. Any questions about that instruction or the appendices that I went over? Medical event reporting. No? Alright, cool. So that's all I got for you guys. If you guys have any questions about anything, I'm over at Headquarters Battalion. You can hit me up there. I'm usually in my office, buried in paperwork, so which is what I have to do now. Thank you for your time. Good luck on your test.
Thank you.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't more than we take half because it would be hot and then.
Good?
Everybody, I'm Adrian to Arbalo. I'm with NCIDC. I was with 2-6 before that. Got about a year left in the division. I've been in for 11 years. Obviously, so I've picked up. So clearly, you know, you don't have to be an expert to go through the instruction and figure out what's going to be on the exam. The next topics that we're going to be going over, they're all from the Foreman Manual. So it's sections 1 through 5. Does anybody know what the Foreman Manual actual instruction is? Bravo, right? Cool. So that's what we're going over. Chapter 1. You know what chapter 1 is? Heritage, right? So this PowerPoint, if you've already reviewed it, it's only 3 slides. In the actual Foreman Manual, this section is 9 pages long. So do you think all of those 9 pages are on these 3 slides? Likely not. And that means all of those questions, potential questions that are going to be on the exam are not going to be captured on 3 PowerPoint slides. So when we're creating these slides, we try to get the most important information that we think we've seen on the exam before. But that doesn't mean not to go back into the instruction and try to pick out those things for yourself or in a group. Because, you know, when you guys are in a team environment, you guys will feed off each other and be like, oh, I saw this on the exam, I saw this on the exam. So still do that. But these, for quiz purposes, like go through these slides. That way you can get familiar with the information. All right, so Congress mandated in 1799. That's when they created the cockpit. Cockpit, also known as sick bay. So make sure you remember that for the test. Regulations, so lob lolly, official rate in 1814. Right? All right, origins of the hospital corps. When's hospital corps birthday?
June 17th.
What year? 1898. All right, good. Awesome. Waves, that's another key thing. What does WAVE stand for? I know it's out there.
Women accepted volunteer emergency service.
Right, okay, so not only do you need to see, like, whenever you're highlighting stuff in the instructions, you'll see waves. Cool, got it, I got waves. 12 January 1944, but they may ask, hey, what does WAVE stand for? So make sure you're breaking down those acronyms so you actually know what they mean, because when they're asking you the questions, they're going to put something very, very similar to accepted for volunteer emergency service, and you'll be on the fence about it, so make sure you're breaking those down. All right, dental tech rate in 2005, so that's when the actual merger happened. So 1 October 2005, you just remember that based off the fiscal year, so after the fiscal year changed in 2005 and merged. Medal of Honor recipients, so something that's not on these PowerPoint slides. Does anybody know who the first Medal of Honor recipient was? Robert Stanley. Awesome. So that's not in the slides, but again, this is in the actual instruction. Robert Stanley's name's on there, so that could be one of those things that'll pop up on the quiz. Medal of Honor recipients, there's 22 Medal of Honor recipients in the Corps. Obviously, I think it jumped up 1, but for test purposes, you're going to be using what's in the Foreman Manual, and that's the case with all the instructions. How many vessels named for hospital foreman? 14 vessels named for hospital foreman. So pretty basic numbers to know. First hospital foreman to receive the Medal of Honor, Robert Stanley. 22 Medal of Honors total, right? And then 14 ships for Medal of Honors for foreman. That's it, yeah, there's only 3 slides.
Is it still 22 Medal of Honor recipients? It's 23.
Yeah, we do that. 23 on that. All right, let's do a quick review of these guys. Holcomb, what's WAVE stand for?
Accepted, volunteers.
Say louder.
Women accepted for volunteer emergency service.
Yes, you're 13. Yes, that's good.
Right.
WAVE is good. How many vessels for a hospital foreman? 14. Awesome. And then how many Medal of Honors? And then who was the first hospital foreman? Robert Stanley. So whenever you look through the walls, like if you're in a hospital or in your workspaces, if you have those metal honors up there, he's the dude with the crazy mustache. That's him. So you see the dude with the crazy mustache? That's Robert Stanley. Awesome. So does anybody know what chapter 2 of the hospital foreman manual is? We're going through 5. So
Expeditionary.
what'd you say?
Expeditionary?
Yeah, expeditionary medical admin. That's the section we're going to go over. So the first portion of this expeditionary medical admin is
My bad.
first portion of this is the manual of the medical department. And you go through all the chapters of the manual of the medical department. So what is the manual of the medical department? Which instruction is that? Yeah, so it's the P117, and then within the manual you have these chapters. And again, whenever it comes to huge things like this, you can make up videos. However, you can memorize this. That way, you can reference it. So as long as you're going back to, hey, manual medical department, these are the chapters that follow in it. It doesn't really go too far in depth in chapter 2 of the Coleman manual. So really, it's a memorization thing at this point. Go through these quizzes because I'm telling you, like, even I struggle with some of these, and when I'm going through the quizzes, we quiz each other, we go back and forth. Like, that's the only way you're going to get it. It's straight memorization. Like, none of this stuff should be, I mean, some of it may be you learning new information, but all of this is just memorization and knowing how it's going to be asked, how it's getting familiar with the material for the exam. All right, so we can do a couple quick ones. FMF. Chapter is FMF. 19. All right, what about chapter 15? What's chapter 15? Medical examinations. So go through these. I recommend, like, however you're going to memorize it best. If it's flashcards, if it's retaking the quizzes, it's one of these memorization things. All right, so SAMS. Everybody familiar with SAMS? So SAMS is tracking. So basically, it's when you're, it's like medical data, almost like MERS, right? For shipboard purposes. And again, when you see SAMS on the test, you're gonna have to break out SAMS, and you're gonna have to figure out, hey, what does SAMS actually stand for? I know it says it up there, but anybody actually read it up there? What does SAMS stand for? Right, shipboard automated medical system. So the way they did it, they broke it down funny. It's a shipboard automated medical systems, but SNAP is the one above it. So it's non-tactical automated data process system. So SNAP and SAMS, medical and dental tracking, and then you just got to know the acronyms and what they stand for. All right, battalion aid stations. We all know what battalion aid stations are. This question is always on the exam, even our exam. So what's the ratio of medical officers to foremen? 2 to 65. I don't think I've ever not seen it on the exam. So know that ratio. All right, EMF, what does EMF stand for? I don't think it says yet. Expeditionary medical facility. And then how long is this meant to sustain? 60 days. We don't really need to know much other than that. Other than let's see, the beds, 500 beds, that's on the test as well. I think this is the last slide. All right, mobile construction battalion animals. There's 8 of them, and they're in Gulfport, Mississippi. So this is the case with a lot of this information. We're going to know where it is, what it is, who's in charge of it. Right? So 8 naval mobile construction battalions, Fort Wayne, and Gulfport, Mississippi. That is it for chapter 2. That's everything. All right, chapter 2. Let's do. What's the ratio? For foreman and medical officers? 2. And then how many days is EMF sustained for? 60 days. And chapter 19. And that's of what? P117, which is the manual of the medical department. All these instructions and all this information overlaps. You'll see in pretty much everything.
Page 3, 4, and 5 then?
Yeah, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, anybody know what chapter 3 is? Chapter 3? Yeah, it's in the second section. And it's really not. So, chapter 3 is going over medical records. Like, that's the first portion that it covers. So, it's going to cover 3 categories of medical records. So, what's the first category of medical records? Think very broad. Right? What you say? Outpatient. So that's a breakdown of it. But the first category you're thinking, you have primary records, right? You have secondary records, and you have ancillary records, which are temporary records. So primary, secondary, and temporary. So within your primary records, you're going to have which type of records? Yeah, so you have outpatient and regular health records. So for secondary records, what are some examples of secondary records?
Patient records.
Yeah, so they give a couple different examples actually in the hospital form manual. One of them is OB, and the other one is like psych. So if you're memorizing, trying to get this information quick, just be like, hey, OB and then psych patients. That's what follows under. Those are their examples of secondary records. And then following that, you have your temporary records. And temporary records are, which Austin said, ancillary records. Let's see. Right, so another portion that this goes over in chapter 3. Are you guys following all? You guys have the thing up? Okay. So another portion that this goes over, I think I skipped the slide too, is the FMPs. And if you've actually sat down to try to memorize the FMPs, it's kind of a pain. But if you try to find patterns in things, it becomes easy. So if you think about, like, some of them you just have to know, like active duty. Obviously, you always see that one because it's on your record, it's 20. One that you may not know is the reserve one, which is 12. I didn't really pay attention to that ever, but it's 12. Reserve, 12. So it's active reserve for 12. And then you think about your wife, right? Or your wife or husband. So usually around 30 years old, right? You can get married. That's some people get married in the military for other benefits, but around 30 years old, you can get married. And you can have, here, let's go to the slide. This what I want. This chapter 3?
Yeah, it should be.
Maybe I skipped it.
Is that what you're talking about? No.
Oh, sorry. I was going into chapter 4. Anyways, we'll go into chapter 4 real quick, but I'll go back.
Chapter 4, right?
Yeah, you can, and then we'll go back to that one. So 30. When you're 30 years old, you get married. You can have about 10 wives. That's kind of a good way to memorize it. Don't actually try to get 10 wives. That'd be ridiculous. But when you're 30, you can have 10 wives. Following that, you can have 20 kids. So 0 1s to 20. That's how many kids you can have. 20 kids. Again, don't have 20 kids. That's ridiculous. After that, you're going to start with your 4s. All right. So pretty much from 40 to 50, actually 40 to 60. When you're looking at your FMPs, it goes by 5s. So 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So the first one's going to be your mom. So that's 40, 45. Second one is going to be your dad. Okay?
Yeah, it should be 4. There you go.
Cool. So here you go. That's your wives. You can have 10. You can have 20 kids. And then you start with your 4s, right? And it's going by 5s again. Even though it says 40 to 44, you got to count that 40. So 5 moms, 5 dads, and then you move into your in-laws. 5 moms, again, starting with moms again. So 5 mom in-laws, 5 dad in-laws, and then you just go to others. So others 60 to 69, and then again, these are the memorization ones from 98 to 99. So that's just an easier way to memorize it. When you get from 40s to 60s, it's all pretty much like life. Alright. let's go back to the beginning of chapter 4 now, since I skipped around. Alright, so patient records, we talked about these already, primary, secondary, and temporary. Again, secondary, just remember this, because I always see this on the test. Convenience, so we'll talk about convenience records. But just like I said, OB in psychiatry or psychology. So if you say think OB and psych, those are your secondary medical records. Alright, so a lot of these instructions, the CO has the ultimate responsibility. Don't always default to that because a lot of stuff changes. Sometimes it's the VA, sometimes it's the CO. So for this one in particular, it's the CO that has ultimate responsibility of medical records. Right? This is also on the exam a lot, the NRPC. So pretty much if you got out or retired before 1994, you're going to refer to these guys, NRPC, New Orleans. Afterwards. If you were discharged before, it'll be the VA that you send your request to. So before 1994, you're referring to the VA. After 1994, you're going to New Orleans to request that medical records. That's where they maintain. I mentioned pencil entries up here, but I think everybody knows what pencil entries are. I don't think I've ever seen pencil entries like that on my face. Alright, so just preparing the medical record. Again, pencil entries are in there. Which portions are you signing? I've seen this on the exam. Hey, which one do you sign to pen? Which one do you not? So just remember part 2, that's in the DD 2005 Privacy Act. Everybody knows the acronym to this, the dirty acronym. Okay, I won't say it out loud then. But yeah, it's the easiest way. But don't only get focused on the colors. Know these. So if you know 6150/20, again, it's consecutive, so you're going from 21 to 29. And then you can kind of bounce your acronym on that. So if you're writing stuff down before the exam, you just write 6150/20 and then write your colors. And then you're able to match them up easier that way. Alright, this is a lot of information. And this is where the memorization part comes into play. These are all your forms. From laboratory forms, from death certificate forms. All of this is in chapter 4. And if you can find these, find them. But I've always seen, I don't know, I'd say 80% of these on the exam. 80% of these are always on the exam. And you just utilize the quizzes, because again, with the forms, there's a forms quiz that you can take every day. You can take it as many times as you want. That's the only way it's going to get you to memorize it. One that we were going through actually just the other day, just an easier way for you to remember it. The autopsy protocol and which one is it? And the authorization for autopsy. So protocol, usually you have to follow protocol before you get authorization, so that's why your 503 is before your 523. And usually those will be the ones they try to trip you up on too. So 503 and 523. And then following that, like, so if you're looking at disposition or authorization for if you're thinking like specialty stuff like for autopsies, those are going to be your alphas and your bravos. So still following in with authorization, but just like further breakdown of it. So alpha bravo, you're like, okay, that's a specialized autopsy. So, like I said, just try to find patterns in these that'll help you memorize a lot of the information. All right, dental record forms. Is anybody a dental tech? You're dental tech, okay, cool. But everybody's seen their dental record, right? When you're going to turn it in, you're not supposed to carry it. And then you look through it. So obviously, when you open up, think about when you're opening up looking at your dental record. What do you have on the left-hand side? You have your pictures. So your pictures are there on your left-hand side. Following that, you have your questionnaire. Hey, that's the only part that you really fill out when you go to your exam. And then part 3, I just kind of think of it as, hey, that stuff's not for you. That's your dental guys will fill that out. And then following that is your status. So kind of at the end is your status. With all these lovely forms from the previous slide that you're gonna eventually have to memorize. Is that it? Yep. That's it for that one. We'll go back to chapter 3 since I skipped it. Your favorite chapter. Yeah, these first few chapters, other than chapter 5, chapter 5 is kind of long. Chapter 5 is medical logistics. So, a lot of information in that. Well, I guess since this one's up here, we can talk about this one. Oh, there it goes. Alright, cool, chapter 3. Biggest thing on this slide, seen this plenty of times, is the 1172. So that's the form that your members are going to use and fill with their ID card. They have to get a new ID card once it's expired within 120 days. So make sure you pay attention to that date. Then there's only this exception, SecNav designees and foreign military personnel for years eligibility. Oh, this one's actually big. A lot of people don't know what ALTA stands for. So actually take a look at that and try to memorize that. So Armed Forces Held Longitudinal Technical Application. Pay attention. I'm telling you, this breaking out of the acronyms is going to help you a lot. Alright, these two that are red, so you have category 1A, 1B. I've honestly not seen these other ones on the exam yet, but they can always sneak them in. So these are just different categories, patient priority categories. So active duty, 1 alpha, and then Bravo's reserve, or National Guard. But yeah, do try to remember these other ones, so they could always put them in there. Has anybody seen these other ones on the exam before? Yeah. They typically the active duty will take the component there. Alright, patient rights and or the rights and responsibilities. These are again, I wouldn't expect everybody to memorize all these. But if you think about it in like basic, common sense terms, these are the rights like based off the hospital or MTF that that the patient should have, based off their requirement. And then this is what the patient is responsible for. So if you're looking at a multiple choice question, if there's some stuff that's doesn't fall under the hospital, like I don't think that's a right, like that they would get in the hospital, then obviously. That one's you're going to use process of elimination. And then same thing over here. What is the patient responsible for? It's common sense stuff. Like, yes, they're responsible for compliance with the medical care. Responsible for the medical records. Their own pain management. So, group these things up. Try to think of it in common sense terms. There's definitions in like medical supply too. When we get to it, like a lot of it's common sense. Alright, DAPA and family advocacy. So this is where they'll sneak in other instructions, even though you're in the corporate manual, right? So you have SecNav 1752.3, and then BMA CC 220.70. And then up top, again, for DAPA, the actual instruction, 5250.4. So pay attention to those whenever you see those in there, because it's still testable material. So just know DAPA is that instruction, and then family advocacy. Family advocacy is really just if you're thinking about spousal or dependent abuse or something like that, it's kind of what it uses. So they have medical line and chaplain and family service centers. I think ours is actually really close by. So that's pretty good. Again, physical readiness, so they snuck in an instruction there, 6110.1. A lot of these are probably on your grade anyway, so it's a good overlap for you to get familiar with that stuff. Freedom of Information Act, this one's a big one. 10 working days to respond to the requester, and then dates of course. They may try to trip you up with the dates, asking other dates in place of 1974. Know your Privacy Act dates, and then know your Freedom of Information Act when you're requesting information. You got 10 days to respond to this. Alright, this slide, if you're thinking about it, the only truly different one is this one, the non-military federal prisoners. So enemy prisoners of war and then detained personnel and military prisoners, they both have medical care benefits. When you're looking at the differences for non-military, These guys, only during emergency situations will they get, medical care, so authorized only emergency medical care. Those are the big differences between those. So, again, you may see three categories: enemy prisoner of war and detained, non-military, and then military, so obviously the non would be the correct answer. I think that's it for chapter 4. Going a little too fast, so have you guys been taking the quizzes though? Are these quizzes split up already?
Should be, yeah.
Okay. They weren't all one big thing, so yeah, they should be split up.
Yeah, they're split up.
That's kind of what underlying after the test. You guys do reference roundup? Face down. Everybody get 36? No? After like, I don't know what, how long has it been since EAP? Maybe like
Yesterday.
No, for ours.
Yeah.
I finally get 36 out of 36 out of 10. Reference roundup. But that means I have to move on to another section. I'll take that one now and again, just to make me feel better. Oh yeah, so this will be the last chapter then that we're covering before lunch. Like I said, it's a long chapter. It's only, I guess not today. It's 26 slides, I think. It's medical logistics. Anybody know what do you think falls under medical logistics in that form of manual? What type of stuff? What type of information? Maybe questions that you might have seen. What is that, somebody? Somebody said something. It seems just a lot. Yeah, so yeah, when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about like supply ordering, right? Yeah, supplies, that's a good one. Supply ordering, like what would you order supplies with? What would you ship supplies with? Yeah, all those different codes, the supply codes, the classification codes. I hate those. Those are the worst. All right, so chapter 5. There we go. Medical logistics. There may be dates like this in there, but the biggest takeaway that I saw from this slide was these portions down here. So know your acronyms, and I said it before in the other slides, but DLA, what is DLA? What is NAVSUP? NavMed.com is pretty easy because it's pretty much our name, but yeah, Defense Logistics Agency. They can trip you up by just asking some random stuff that sounds like Defense Logistics Agency, and you pick the wrong thing. Right? Because they're going to reference these guys. They're going to reference these in acronym form, and they'll ask you which one is the correct one. For this, like I said, the CO's not always like the dude in charge, right? Chief Review Man, he's the one that establishes, and that's pretty typical with all of your instructions. He's either establishing like organizational structures, or he's implementing policies. So if it's that guy, then it's probably Chief Review Man. All right, there you go. Defense Logistics Agency, centralized management and physical distribution depot and vendor. So there's a few different portions here. So technical review, purchasing, and then warehouse storeroom, receipt control. These are basic. These are definitions. Right? So don't go too much into the weeds of it. Like know the beginning portions of it. You know, kind of understand. You don't have to know word for word on these definitions. And like I said, remember common sense. Common sense applies for a lot of this stuff. So here, let's go over here. Alright, stock control. We're responsible for the inventory management aspect of the material, warehouse, or purchase direct issue to customer. That's your stock control number. It's a number. It's super basic stuff. The P485, this one's always on the exam as well. That's your supply. Alright, so we have a supply system, P485, and then that one breaks down too into different categories. So you have volume 1, volume 2, and then volume 3. So supply of float, supply of shore, and then just your appendices. All right, the 409, that's the mill strip manual. It's just a reference. Really, it's just got reference documents there. So you got 45, which is the supply, and then your 409, which is kind of the reference document. So it's called the mill strip and mill strap manual. 51, NAVMED 5132, and I think this may be a bib on your, maybe another bib on your exam. 5132. UMed surgical equipment and management. That one's a piece in its own. Again, terminology, super common sense. Procurement, you guys know what procurement is, you know what it means, you know what commitment is, obligation. These are all dealing with contracts. And I know you've done training on unauthorized commitments. You guys know what that stuff is, right? So you're pretty much, you're the one trying to say that, hey, I'm committing, I'm obligating a contract when you're not the one in charge to do that, right? You're not in that position. So these, I don't think you'll have a hard time with there's common sense terms. Micro purchases. So just remember, micro purchases do not exceed $3,000. Right? That's a big one. Everybody knows what CERMAR is. Does anybody not know what CERMAR is? All right, FAR, again, acronym. I've seen this one on the exam. Federal Acquisition Regulation. All right. Used by all federal executive agencies in their acquisition of supplies with appropriate funds. Again, common sense stuff here with consumable material, not consumable. Stuff you use, stuff you don't. Yeah, let's go break down that. All right, cool. So federal supply classification systems. These are the ones that I absolutely hate because they're hard to break down, and I like to find patterns in things, and it's hard to find a pattern in this. For me, at least. All right. So your 6500 series, that's your medical and dental veterinary equipment and supplies, and then it breaks down further, right? So from there, you'll have the 2-digit code following that. So it's a group, and then you have a classification portion of it. So your group is there, and then your classification point is the 05s. So drugs and biologicals, medicated, like there's other than memorization, it's kind of hard to figure these guys out. Like I said, I have a hard time with this one. But yeah, there's a bunch of them. So it pretty much goes from your standard number is going to be 65, and then from there, those are specific supplies that you're going to have to count. I'm not doing flashcards, that way you can reference them pretty quickly. Because they can ask any number of one of these. And these are federal supply classifications. So what are the two parts of the federal supply classification? Just remember? Those over here. Alright, so 2-digit numeric codes, right? So the group and then the supply class. So your group and then the supply class. Alright, cool. So national stock number, everybody knows, hey, it's a 13-digit national stock number. But that is broken down again here. So this is your national stock number. And within your national stock number, you have things like, hey, this is the federal supply classification. That's the first portion of it. From here you have, what is this? The National Codification Bureau, like that's even a thing, right? So National Codification Bureau is just two numbers, but it breaks down even further. Your NIN, right? Your NIN has how many digits? It has 9. It has 9 digits. There's just not 9 digits here, right? So it includes the NCP. So this and this is really the NIN. So if they're asking you to break down anything like that, we're going to say, hey, which portion is the NIN? Which portion is the FSC? This is what it's talking about. It's talking about the breakdown of the national stock number. All right, supply levels and terminology. Again, operating level. That's pretty straightforward. How much is there to sustain the operations? That's your operating level. These are a good ones on the test because they'll try to mix you up. Safety level. quantity of an item over and above the operating level, right? So something that should be maintained, so we don't want to go below that. Stockage objective, the minimum quantity of the stock that is required to support current operations. And then you have requisition objective, indicates the maximum quantity of stock for an item that should be kept on hand to support operations. So go through these and make sure you're not mixing them up. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, they're simple, basic terminology, but you know how the Navy's going to try to trick you up. So find the key words in those, like over and above. That way you're not mixing these guys up and missing these questions on the test. All right, here's your forms. Again, we talked about SAMs already, SAM, SNAP. So again, tracking system for supply. Your forms, I actually missed one of these on the exam a couple cycles ago. And I don't know, it's just because I mixed them up, right, because of this. And it's these two. 1348, tag 6, and then the 1348. So, one, right, used order items that have an NSN. This one here, used to requisition material that cannot be identified by an NSN. So if you don't have an NSN, you can requisition it with this one. Not to be confused with the 1149 requisition and invoice shipping document, all right? So pay attention to these. So these two are connected because they're 1348s. So one, hey, this guy has an NSN. The other one, hey, this one doesn't have an NSN, so it's the 1348 Texas. And then following that, you have your actual shipping invoice. So if you worked in a supply or worked through demos, you know, this is how you get your stuff shipped off, right? Or shipped in. So 1149, requisition for shipping. 1348 Texas is what requisition for material that doesn't have an NSN. All right, following this, you have the 1155. So it's order for supplies and services. So this is when you're purchasing something from open market. So I think this would constitute like PSA purchases too. So your 1155, you're buying it from just like I said, from open market. Let's see, controlled substances inventory. Conducted monthly, that's always going to be a question. Like how often is it conducted monthly, unannounced, and it's done by the CSID. Controlled substance inventory form. Bulkhead to bulkhead is 90%. So make sure you're highlighting that in your notes. 90% for bulkhead to bulkhead. And specific commodity inventory is kind of all items under that same code, that federal supply code. So that goes through everything together. So everything's kind of connected. I would say, yeah, what's up?
How often are bulkhead seen that one?
Oh, have you seen that one? I don't. Is it annually? Have you ever seen that one before? Yeah, annually. Yeah, no. What'd you say?
I said I always pick quarterly.
Yeah. Pay attention to that stuff too, because a lot of times I'll pick quarterly too, and it's not quarterly. So that's what I'm saying. You gotta truly know the differences. Those old habits and old study techniques of, oh yeah, the answer is all of the above, or the answer is the only one that's. A lot of times people will say there's no absolutes. Like, hey, this is the only blank, blank, blank. People will say, oh, that's not it. But I don't know. Sometimes it is. So pay attention to what you read. All right, everybody knows this one. Boxes must be stored 18 inches below the sprinkler heads. But don't get confused because it's not the top of the ceiling, it's the actual sprinkler head. So if you look up there, it's 18 inches from that point. So depending on the wording of the question, remember the sprinkler head and you're measuring from that. Unit of issue, that's just how it describes how it comes. So you want to order, I don't know, if you want to order, you think you're ordering one thing and then you end up ordering 100 things. Because you didn't pay attention to the unit of issue. Reported discrepancy, this is the SF364. So I really just know that that's the discrepancy one. And I think that's it for the forms.
Question, why does it have to be 18 inches from the sprinkler head? What if it's within it? Yeah, why though? Right, yeah. It doesn't allow to disperse fully.
No fires have been put out.
Right. Yes, some people
I said, like, all that stuff, if you truly think about the question, it makes sense when you know the answer. So PMs, everybody know what PMs are. Actually, do you know what demos is? Demos, right? So that's how you're typically ordering supplies at a, I don't know, at a hospital or wherever your domain is. So Defense Medical Logistics Standards, Standard Support. And again, that's one of those acronyms that you're going to break down. You're going to have to pick it out of multiple choice here.
I was on the last test.
It asked what demos was?
There was 4 biomedical.
Yeah. So that, PMs, everybody knows what PMs are, so preventive maintenance, so if you're running a portable or doing PMs all the time, it's kind of the same situation applies. Alright, this one I have seen on my exam before. So you're looking at minor personal property, has an acquisition cost greater than $5,000 and less than $250,000. Subminor, personal property, any asset that has a cost of $5,000 or less. And then if you go back up here, you capitalize personal property. That one is estimated fair market value equal to or greater than $250,000. So obviously it goes from top or from bottom to top. So write these out. Don't just pay attention to the slide. Write these out and then just write a little note next to them on which ones are which. Again, so you don't get confused because it's easy to get this confused. They do it on purpose. HIPAA, don't get that confused with which one? The Privacy Act, which is what year? 2005. No. That's the form. That's DD 2005. Yeah, so 1974. Again, like, and I know, like, being in this course, you have so much stuff thrown at you today. That's why it's important to go back through the material, go back to the slides. And even up until your test day, take these quizzes because I'm telling you, like, even if you're like half asleep taking these quizzes, you're gonna memorize some of that stuff just because that's how the brain works. Yeah, so HIPAA, that's the Act of 1996, so we're throwing that one in there. And again, these sections overlap with other sections. So HIPAA 1996, Privacy Act 1974, Freedom of Information Act, what's the point about that one? Yeah, so you gotta respond within 10 business days. And then the DD 2005. Alright, here's another one. Here's another act for you. The Safe Medical Devices Act. And I want to say I've seen this before, not on the recent test. Maybe I don't know, maybe it was when I was taking a second class test. Yeah, 1990. So Safe Medical Devices Act of 1990, mandatory requirement for MTFs to report all incidences and suggested by property. Pretty much that device causing damage on there. Alright, unsatisfactory equipment. You're looking at 3 types. I think it's just 3. Yeah, 3 types of material here. So type 1, type 2, type 3. Determined, remember, pick out these key things. So determined to be harmful, right? So that's the 1. Suspected of being harmful, that's 2. And then unsatisfactory because of malfunction. I think this was like another word before. I think that's what I said. Alright, report type 1 complaints immediately. Type 2 and type 3, what's the magic number? 10 days. So as soon as possible, but not later than 10 days. And then 3 separate type of maintenance levels. So level 1, level 2, level 3. Performance testing, preventive maintenance. And then level 3 is consisting maintenance required to be like complete overhaul. And I think this is kind of falls into some warfare devices, but if you just know these first portions, these lines here, that'll get you the answer that you need for the test. Alright, here's some more forms for you. AMOL, that's a big one, actually. They're always asking about the AMOLs. So authorized medical allowance list, they always try to trick you up though. AMOLs and ADOLs, right? So obviously the D, you can get that one in there. That one there, reports of survey, that's the DD form 200. Oh shoot, that's it. Hold on, let's see. Alright, so in the name, let's talk about the name real quick. What makes up the name? 9 digits. Alright, so Oh, sorry, not the NIN. What makes up the national stock number?
13 digits.
13 digits. And then the NIN is how many numbers of those 13 digits?
9.
And then within the NIN, what falls in the NIN? The NCIDC, right? And then what's at the very beginning portion of the national stock? FSC, right? So the federal classification. Or federal supply classification. You can think, when talking about the federal supply classification, how many groups of the federal supply classification are there? Sorry, I said that kind of wrong, but yeah, there's two. So one is the group, and then one is actual the category. So right, so you have 65. That's medical and dental, and then again, I told you a second ago, so I don't know what 05 is. But we go back to it real quick. There's no good way to memorize these other than repetition. So right here, 05, drugs and biologicals. So that's what we're talking about. Do you guys have any questions on really any of the sections or anything in general?
For the SAMs, is it SNAP or shipboard?
It's SAMs and SNAP. So here,
well, I mean, if somebody asked me what does SAM stand for on the test.
so it's shipboard. Yeah, it's shipboard. So one is shipboard, automated medical system, and the other one is non-tactile automated medical system.
SNAP and SAMs are two different programs.
Yeah, I don't think that one's on the same thing. Yeah, I think that was chapter 3.
SAMs is what we should be using. It's way easier to work with, especially for NCIDC. I mean, you can track all your medical supplies in there, water testing, basically everything you do. Yeah, SAMs is pretty legit. Good? Good?
All right, let's do a quick review of the other sections. First Medal of Honor recipient, Foreman, Stanley. How many ships named after hospital? 14. 14, very good, very good. Let me ask you one that you probably don't know. What is chapter 4 of the Foreman Manual?
Medical logistics.
Not medical logistics, 5 is medical logistics. Medical records, right? In chapter 2, you have the Manual of the Medical Department, which is 7117. Awesome. What's the DD 1172? What is it? For years eligibility for ID cards. And then if dependent's ID card expires, how long do they have to get it? 120 days. Say 120, 120 days. All right, cool. Yeah, that's about it. Do the quizzes. Because that's the only thing, really, like, other than these people up here talking to you. Like, we're not experts, 100%. We look through the information, through the instructions, put it together on here, based on the information we think is going to be tested. Which is the same thing you would do. It's just a repetition of you studying and actually reviewing and becoming familiar with the material. All right? Cool. Thanks.
Great. All right, go ahead and break for chow. Next class will start at 1300.
You right.